Hi everybody, it's Shar. Happy Friday. Happy Friday the 13th. It's your lucky day. We're continuing to honor Black History Month here, where I'm highlighting Black pioneers in the trades and industrial fields. Last time we talked about McKinley Thompson Jr., the first Black industrial designer at Ford, who designed the iconic Ford Bronco. Now, today I want to tell you about Elijah McCoy. This is the man whose name became synonymous with the real deal, and what his story teaches us about iron. That's the technical competence so solid people won't accept anything less. Now, Elijah McCoy was born in 1844 in Colchester, Ontario, Canada. But his story really starts in Kentucky. His parents, George and Mildred McCoy, were enslaved on a plantation in Kentucky, where they made the dangerous journey through the Underground Railroad to freedom, risking everything, including their lives, just to escape to Canada. Now, think about that. That determination, that courage. They didn't just want freedom for themselves. They wanted to build a future for themselves and their children, and they did. Now, on a small rural farm in Ontario, they raised Elijah and his 11 siblings. Despite being extremely poor, they noticed something special about their son. Young Elijah was fascinated with mechanical devices. He kept on taking things apart, figuring out how they worked, and trying to put them back together. That sounds very familiar for a lot of us in the trades. But Elijah truly had a gift. So his parents saved, scraped, and their family put together every penny they could. So at age 15 in 1859, they sent Elijah to Edinburgh, Scotland for an apprenticeship in mechanical engineering. Now, a Black teenager from a family of former slaves studying engineering in Scotland, his parents made that possible. 5 years later, McCoy returned with his mechanical engineering certification. But here's where the dream hit reality. When he came back to the United States after the Civil War, nobody would hire him as an engineer. It didn't matter that he was trained. It didn't matter that he was certified. It mattered that he was Black. And in post-Civil War America, he wasn't fighting to be the only one in the room. He was fighting just to get through that door. So McKinley, despite his qualifications as a mechanical engineer, took the only job he could, and that was as a fireman and oilman in the Michigan Central Railroad. Now, it's not the fireman that you thought of. Here's what the job entailed. McCoy had to shovel 2 tons of coal per hour into a locomotive firebox to keep the engine running. But that wasn't the worst part of the job. The worst part was the oiling, because back then trains had to stop every few miles so workers could manually lubricate all the moving parts and the in the engine, like the cylinders, the axles, the wheels, and the bearings. They had to stop and do that for every single car. Workers had to climb onto hot moving machinery with handheld oil cans. If the parts weren't lubricated, the metal would grind together, overheat, and seize up. And fires could break out and the trains could derail. This wasn't just dirty work. It was a high-stakes job where the slip meant the derailment of a train or the loss of life. So oilmen like McCoy risked their lives climbing on scalding equipment. Often it was still partially in motion, trying to get oil in those hard-to-reach places. People were injured and people died. And it was a slow, inefficient, ineffective, and expensive process. Every time a train stopped for manual lubrication, it lost time, it lost money, and it lost the momentum. Now, McCoy, being a certified mechanical engineer, was shoveling coal and risking his life with an oil can, thinking there's got to be a better way. So, working in a makeshift machine shop on what little spare time he had, it took him 2 years to develop a solution. And in 1872, he patented the automatic lubricating cup. And that's a device that dripped oil onto the engine's moving parts while the train was in motion. That meant no more stopping every few miles, no more We're having workers climbing on hot machinery. The trains could keep running smoothly, safely, and efficiently. It was truly revolutionary. And McCoy didn't stop there. He went on to earn 57 patents, most of them on improvements to lubrication systems for trains, ships, and industrial machinery. Now, McCoy understood something critical. The ride never ends. You don't invent just one thing and keep coasting. You keep improving, you keep learning, you keep sharpening your iron. But here's the part that most people don't know. McCoy lacked the capital to manufacture his invention in very large numbers. So he had to sell his patent rights to investors just to get the funding to keep inventing. Now, this meant other companies could make cheap imitations and poor quality knockoffs and then they just flooded the market. And sometimes when companies found out McCoy was black, they would just cancel their orders on the devices. Now, despite revolutionizing the railroad industry and making millions of dollars for the railroad companies, McCoy never shared in that fortune. And in 1929, he died penniless. But here's the thing about a true outlier. They can take the money and they can take the credit, but they can never take away the excellence. And that excellence is what lived on. His devices became so essential, so superior to everyone else compared to all the millions of imitations that railroad inspectors and engineers would ask, is this the real McCoy? They wanted to make sure the equipment used his genuine system and not some cheap knockoff. And that's where the phrase comes from. So when you ask if something's the real McCoy, you're asking if it's the genuine article. Is it mechanically sound? And if it's the standard. Now, here's what Elijah McCoy understood. Your technical competence is your foundation. Whether you came up from the shop floor or you're leading the trades from the outside. Your technical credibility matters. If you're managing technicians, electricians, welders, mechanics, you need to know enough to speak their language. You need to fully understand the work. McCoy had a mechanical engineering degree and couldn't get hired as an engineer just because he was black. So what did he do? He became so technically excellent that they couldn't ignore him. He invented something the entire railroad industry needed, and he made himself essential. When they asked, is this the real McCoy? The answer was truly yes. His technical skills were so strong that his name became the standard. Now that's truly iron. Now, if you're leading in the trades right now, whether you came up from the floor or you're managing from the outside, here's what Elijah McCoy's story teaches us. As an outlier, you can't just be good. You have to be undeniable. When they question you, and trust me, they will, you don't have to defend yourself with words. You defend yourself with your competence. Do you know your job? Do you understand the work your team does? Can you speak to the technical challenges that they face? Have you done the work to understand their world? Now, McCoy didn't invent just one thing. He earned 57 patents and kept on improving. He kept learning, he kept sharpening his iron for over 50 years because he knew your technical skills are your shield. Now, every time you check the lubrication system on a vehicle or a piece of machinery, you're using Elijah McCoy's innovation. Every time you see equipment running smoothly without constant manual intervention, you're seeing his legacy. He was born to formerly enslaved parents. He couldn't get hired as an engineer despite his degree. Companies canceled their orders when they found out he was black, and he had to sell his patents just to survive. But he built something anyways. And now, when people want to know if something is genuine, they invoke his name. That's what happens when your iron is undeniable. Now, before you walk into that shop, that meeting, that job site next week, ask yourself, is my iron solid? Do I know my craft? Do I understand the work? Can I back up what I'm saying with actual competence? Elijah McCoy proved that when your technical skills are strong enough, when you keep sharpening them, when you never stop learning, they can't ignore you. His name literally became the standard for the genuine article. You're standing on his shoulders. Now, go out there and be the real McCoy in your field. I appreciate you all. Visit the8secondlife.com. Connect with me either here on YouTube or Substack. Keep an eye on the website for additional resources that I'll be adding in the next upcoming weeks. Thank you very much. I will see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Stay in the middle.